Good evening and welcome to NewsNight. This evening we'll keep you in the know all about international, national, and local news to the Pittsburgh region. Find out what pop star is finally being freed from her conservatorship, and also new developments in all the Kyle Rittenhouse trial. All this and more coming up on NewsNight. Good evening, I'm Erin Ute. The European Union Parliament in Brussels, Belgium announced on Thursday, November 11th that they are condemning Poland's recent near-total ban on abortions and called on the Polish government to make sure it no longer leads to the deaths of pregnant women. The condemnation came following the news that a woman died of septic shock in her 22nd week of pregnancy after doctors failed to perform an abortion and waited for the fetus to die. In a resolution, the 27-nation bloc's parliament voted 327 to 124 with 55 abstentions to underscore their solidarity with Polish women and those who still continue to help them get abortions despite the restrictive law. Reproductive rights activists say that the woman is the first person to die as a result of recent restriction on Poland's abortion law. Some who supported the new abortion restriction said it is uncertain whether the doctor's decision led to her death and accused women's rights activists of exploiting the situation. Med Robert Biderden of a socialist group, which strongly backs this resolution, said in a statement, quote, "The EU cannot remain indifferent to this nightmare. Polish women cannot be reduced to expendable incubators. They are European citizens whose rights must be protected, even if their attack comes from the government," end quote. A resolution of the European Parliament is not binding on a member state. The Belarus-Poland border has seen a rise in the number of migrants attempting to cross from Belarus into Poland. The escalation came Monday, November 8th, when thousands of migrants gathered at a crossing point where they met with barbed wire fences and security forces. Pictures online show border security spraying the migrants with something that appears to be a detergent against those trying to enter. The migrants were trying to cross in Kusnica, which was closed that Tuesday. The border crisis started months ago when Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko became furious by the EU's sanctions against Poland. Lukashenko said that Poland would no longer allow undocumented migrants and refugees to pass through the country to reach the rest of the European Union. Poland has declared a state of emergency and will not allow journalists and human rights workers to get close to the border. The head of lighting on Film Rust filed a lawsuit Wednesday over Alec Baldwin's fatal shooting of cinematographer Helena Hutchins on New Mexico set of the Western, alleging negligence that caused him, quote, "severe emotional distress," end quote, that will haunt him forever. Serge Sventoy said in a suit that the bullet that killed his close friend Hutchins narrowly missed him, and he held her as she died. In a news conference on Wednesday, November 10th, Sventoy's attorney, Gary A. Dordick, said, quote, "They should never, ever have live rounds on this set," end quote. The lawsuit filed in Los Angeles Superior Court names nearly 24 defendants associated with the film, including Baldwin, who was both a star and a producer on set. David Halls, the assistant director who handed Baldwin the gun, and Hannah Gutierrez, who was in charge of the weapons on set. It is the first known lawsuit of what could become many stemming from the October 21st shooting, which also injured Rust director Joel Sousa. It is the 9th film that Sventoy and Hutchins had worked on together, and he had taken the job at a low pay because they were good friends. He said that he had seen guns sitting unattended in the dirt a few days earlier prior to this shoot and had warned the people responsible for them. On the day of the shooting, Sventoy was setting up lighting within 6 to 7 feet of Baldwin. The suit says, quote, "What happened next will haunt the plaintiff forever. He felt a strange and terrifying whoosh of what felt like pressurized air from his right. He felt what he believed was gunpowder and other residual materials directly strike the right side of his face," end quote. Then, with his glasses scratched and hearing muffled, he knelt to help Hutchins. The suit said. The lawsuit seeks both compensatory and punitive damages to be determined later. It was filed in the Los Angeles County because the plaintiff and most of the defendants are based there. In recent years, the company Johnson & Johnson has faced controversy specifically centered around the coronavirus vaccine. Now they are making news for another reason. Nick Konopka has more.
Last week, the big-name company Johnson & Johnson announced plans to separate into two distinct companies. One division will be focused on pharmaceuticals and medical equipment, such as prescription drugs, cancer treatments, vaccines, and surgical tools, and is planned to keep the recognizable Johnson & Johnson brand name. The second company, with an unannounced new name, will take ownership of all consumer health products. Such products include over-the-counter medicines and other recognizable brand name goods like Band-Aid, Tylenol, Neutrogena, Aveeno, and Listerine. The two separate branches of the Johnson & Johnson company currently bring in vastly different amounts of revenue. In this year's third quarter, the pharmaceuticals brought in $9.6 billion, while the consumer goods only brought in $3.7 billion. Separating the two divisions will hopefully allow them both to grow separately in their own markets. The split is aiming to take place over the next 18 to 24 months.
Britney Spears has finally been freed from conservatorship that has controlled her life for the past 13 years. During a court hearing on Friday, Judge Brenda Penny ruled the conservatorship was quote, no longer required, effective immediately, end quote. Spears' father, Jamie, has had control over the pop star's estate and person since 2008, but legal battle arose this past summer when it released that Jamie was abusing his responsibilities as his daughter's conservator. Spears will gain control back over her finances, career moves, medical procedures, and personal life, and fans are elated to learn Britney can make decisions for herself once again. Last year, 17-year-old Kyle Rittenhouse shocked the nation when he shot 4 people with a semi-automatic rifle in Wisconsin. Nick Konopka has more information from his developing trial.
On Monday, jurors went into deliberations for the trial of 18-year-old Kyle Rittenhouse. Back in August of last year, Rittenhouse traveled to Kenosha, Wisconsin during the aftermath that stemmed from the police shootings of Jacob Blake. The defense alleges that Rittenhouse traveled to Kenosha from his home just across the border in Illinois to help protect local businesses from violence. While in Kenosha, Rittenhouse ended up shooting and killing protester Joseph Rosenbaum. This shooting led Rittenhouse to become a divisive figure. Those on the right, like Fox News commentator Tucker Carlson, defended Rittenhouse for taking up arms and to, quote, maintain order, end quote, while progressive Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley labeled him as a white supremacist and a domestic terrorist. Over the past 2 weeks, the charges against Rittenhouse have been argued between the two parties. Rittenhouse was initially charged with 1 count of attempted homicide for shooting another protester in the arm, 1 count of intentional homicide, 1 count of reckless homicide, 2 counts of reckless endangering of safety, 1 count of failure to comply with the citywide curfew, and 1 count for possessing an assault rifle as a minor. However, on Monday, the last charge was dismissed by the judge due to a technicality on the barrel length of the rifle. Prosecutors allege that Kyle Rittenhouse's presence incited the violence that eventually led him to shoot at others, while the defense asserts that he was merely acting in self-defense, as video footage shows Rosenbaum running towards Rittenhouse before getting shot. On Monday, Wisconsin Governor Tony Evers deployed the National Guard to Kenosha as the city expects a verdict by the end of the week.
Coming up after the break, we'll have your local Pittsburgh news. Find out more about what local governments are doing about mask mandates. Stay tuned. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, and welcome back to NewsNight. Most of the student body of the Pittsburgh Public Schools.
Some of the United States allies.
Thursday, the FBI was seen rating.
Let's get started with today's forecast.
Today's high will only reach about 31 degrees.
It's looking a little cooler than we've seen in the past few weeks.
All this and more?
All this and more.
All this and more coming up on NewsNight.
Coming up on NewsNight.
Coming up on NewsNight.
The Pittsburgh Penguins have settled a federal lawsuit filed by a former minor league assistant and his wife who accused the team of negligently retaining a coach who sexually assaulted and harassed her and then retaliating against him for reporting the incident. Jared and Aaron Scattles sued the Penguins nearly a year ago in U.S. District Court for the Middle District of Pennsylvania, alleging former Wilkes-Barre Scranton coach Clark Dontinelli molested Aaron Skadley during an outing on a road trip in 2018. The team is the American Hockey League affiliate of the Penguins and is run by the NHL club. They also allege that current Minnesota Wild general manager Bill Guerin, who was GM for Wilkes-Barre Scranton and assistant GM for the Penguins at the time, asked Jared Scattle to keep the reason for Dontinelli's resignation quiet and that the team punished Skadley for reporting the assault and later terminated his position. Lawyers for Jared and Aaron Skadley announced the settlement in a news release on Tuesday, November 9th. Terms of the settlement were not disclosed. Attorney David Fish, who represents Jared Skadley, said to the Associated Press, quote, "We are pleased that the Penguins organization worked with us to resolve this dispute so that Jared and his family can move on with their lives," end quote. Aaron Skadley also gave a statement saying, quote, "The events of the last 3 years have been deeply challenging, and my hope is now to move forwards as an advocate for others," end quote. She also told the Associated Press that she hopes to be an instrument for change. The Penguins said in a statement that the team officials took prompt action when informed of the allegations in 2019. The team said, quote, "The Penguins and Skadleys have agreed to resolve all claims. Through this resolution, the Penguins hope to bring closure to the Skadleys, proving some measure of peace, and continue to encourage and promote the culture of openness, accountability, and respect at all levels of professional sports," end quote. Even after a year and a half of global COVID-19 pandemic, local governments all over the country are trying to decide how to combat new cases. Governor Tom Wolf released a new mask mandate just recently. Nick Konopka has more.
With the recent CDC approval of the Pfizer-BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine for children ages 5 to 11, Governor Tom Wolf has announced that his mask mandate for K-12 schools will end on January 17th. This date comes 2 weeks after students are set to return from their winter recess, presumably providing enough time for possible infections to dissipate due to the holiday travel. In his announcement, Governor Wolf stated, quote, "We are in a different place than we were in September, and it is time to prepare for a transition back to a more normal setting," end quote. Despite the governor's statement, Pennsylvania is actually in a worse spot in terms of COVID cases than it was in September. When the governor announced the mask mandate, PA was averaging 3,500 cases per day, and now in November, cases are on the rise with our current daily average case count at just over 4,000. With experts warning of a winter surge, it is possible that cases will be even higher come January. With that being said, the mandate may not last until then. Just 3 days after the governor's announcement, PA's Commonwealth Court overturned the mask mandate in a 4-1 ruling. The court ruled that Acting Secretary of Health Allison Beam did not have the authority to make the sweeping policies of the mask mandate without an emergency order by the governor. In May, voters opted to strip Wolf of his emergency powers, making the mask mandate unenforceable by this ruling. However, the mandate will stand for now, as the Wolf administration has appealed the case to the state Supreme Court, which will make the final ruling in the coming weeks.
After a short break, we'll have your Pittsburgh weekly weather forecast, as well as a heartwarming story about a miraculous recovery at the Pittsburgh Zoo. We'll be right back. Happy last week before break. We'll have your Turkey Day weather report as well as what you can expect for your week off. Craig Frakaski has all the details that you need to have.
Thanks, Aaron. Let's take a look at today and get that forecast for tonight's Light Up event. During the day, our high is going to reach 50 degrees. It will be partly cloudy throughout the day, but it will be also partly sunny in the afternoon. It is projected to be the nicest day for the next few weeks. Tonight, the low is going to hit a near freezing 36 degrees. Hopefully, we're not seeing any rain or snow during the day or night. Make sure you bundle up and break out those holiday decorations. The season is almost in full swing. Let's take a look at the week. This week is all over the place in temperature. The warmest day is going to be Sunday with a high of 52, but there is a good 65% chance that it will be raining all day. Moving on to Monday and Tuesday, the temperatures drop, and on Tuesday, we may even be seeing some snow. The lows of these days are going to drop to the mid-20s, with temperatures at 25 and 26 degrees respectively. As for Thanksgiving Day, the high is 46 degrees. Thankfully, we're going to see some sun and low chances of rain. There's still a chance that there will be some afternoon showers though. For those of you who are Black Friday shoppers, the day's high is going to be 47 degrees, but luckily no rain is expected. That's all I have for your holiday week forecast. Back to you, Aaron.
You may have already heard about the elephant calf that was born at the Pittsburgh Zoo in July, which had developed several serious medical conditions in September. The zoo said her overall health conditions was at a critical stage. The calf was not properly gaining weight, among other conditions. The good news is that the zoo reported on Friday, November 12th, that the calf is showing signs of stabilizing, they said. Internal and external veterinary terms are closely monitoring her health 24 hours a day. She is showing signs of stabilizing as she continues her long journey toward recovery. The calf will stay in a guarded condition in order to closely monitor her health. She remains active and bright between nursing and resting, and the animal care team remains vigilant and optimistic. That's all we have for this week on this episode of NewsNight. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Erin Ute, and from everyone here at NewsNight, have a great weekend and a safe fall break.